Again, so I've got a weird one today, and I want you to stick around and listen to the argument, because I think that the title and the thumbnail are a little misleading. And I originally had the very same thought, like, how could you do this? This is not possible. Nobody would do this. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. But let's hear out Kevin, because I think that he might have a good argument here. So Kevin, and you should go check him out on Instagram, Kevin's Cash, Kevin's C-A-C-H-E. I've got it up here, and I'll put it up again at the end, and I'll link to him in the description if I remember, which I never do. So I don't know why I keep saying that. But Kevin is a sports card collector, and he also subsidizes his hobby through a side business of buying and flipping sports cards. And he does very well for himself. He's really quite good at it, something that I would not be good at, but he has a real eye for ungraded cards that have the potential to be 10s, and then he knows how to sell them. He's good at it. So I want you to understand that background before I get into this story. Yesterday, Kevin texted me, and I'm in a group chat with Kevin and James. James is not a collector, an important part of this, and James bought his first card fairly recently. It's a rookie Mac Jones autographed card, dual graded by PSA. Big Mac Jones fan, big Alabama fan. I almost said Auburn. Sorry, James. But James is not a collector. In fact, he kind of despises the whole collecting of cards mentality. And you'll see that in a couple of these text message exchanges that I have here. But it's important to know the backgrounds of both of these guys. Kevin texted us yesterday that he got his PSA order back. It's like his 5th or 6th in the last couple of weeks. He has a lot of orders coming in and out from PSA. This is, and I'm not a Pokemon guy, so don't ask me any details about this card. It's a PSA 10 Charizard Holo. And Kevin said that he was examining the card. Why you would examine the card after it comes in a PSA 10, I don't know, but Kevin does this stuff. And this is, according to PSA right now, an $800 card in a 10. So Kevin said that it's no way it's a 10. And he sent me the images. And he's considering sending it back to PSA. And I was flabbergasted by this. James and I both asked him why you would do this. I was kind of incredulous. Like, what would make somebody send back a card to PSA? The PSA has said, yep, this is gem mint. And say, you know what, PSA, I actually don't want it to be gem mint. I think this deserves an 8 or a 7 or a 6 in Kevin's case here, which we'll get to in a moment. So he sent me some images of the card. It's not a 10. He's right. It's definitely not a 10, but why would you go back and send it? So Kevin explains. He'll end up selling it on eBay, and the buyer will end up returning it, because they'll get it and they'll look at it and they'll say, hang on, was this a fake slab? Was this switched out? Which I don't think is very common, but it definitely does happen. And then he made the argument that PSA will pay him the difference. So if he sends it back to them and says, I don't think this is a 10, and the grader or graders look at it and say, you know what, you're right, this is a 6, PSA will pay him the difference between the original grade and the correct grade. And then Kevin makes the argument that it's ethical to do so. Sure, and we've talked a lot about ethics here on this channel, and I've talked a lot about ethics over on Hobby Think Tank. This is not one I ever would have thought of. I can't imagine anybody sending a card back to PSA asking for a lower grade. But I think Kevin has an argument. I don't agree with it necessarily. I don't think I would do it myself, and I'll tell you what I would do here in a moment. We'll get to that. But James, who is the wise guy of the group, James has got the jokes. He always has some wild situation to compare your current situation to that doesn't really apply, but it's still funny, and you kind of think, okay. So James says, if you were running for your life from a man who was shooting a gun at you, do you stop, turn around, and give them tips on how to shoot at you better? I don't know how that really applies, but it kind of does, and I laughed. And Kevin again said it's hard to sell as a 10, which I get. I understand that. I'm with him. And then James said, when did ethics come into play when selling sports cards? I think James has been paying attention to a lot of things that are happening in the sports card world without actually being part of it himself, and ignoring the fact that the vast majority of sellers are ethical and good. So then I said, why not just say that it's a PSA 10 but looks worse? You see that all the time. PSA 6 but looks way better. PSA 2 but presents much nicer. Why not say PSA 10 but looks worse? I don't know. And then you could describe the flaws in the description of the eBay sale. And then Kevin said, yeah, a PSA 10 looks like a PSA 6, or the closing time equivalent of a PSA 10. You can tell Kevin's younger. He's a lot younger than me. He's a lot more single than me, and he goes out to bars. So the closing time equivalent of a PSA 10 applies to a young guy like him. So I want to know what you think. Let me know in comments. Would you ever do this? Does Kevin's argument hold water? Does it make sense? What do you think about this? His Instagram is Kevin's Cash, and James says, Kevin's Cash, the most ethical or stupid trading card flipper I know. It's Kevin's Cash on Instagram. Go over, be nice to him. Don't go over and say what an idiot he is, because he's not. He's a smart guy. He's really good at this. I'm sure he's going to do the right thing. I'm just not sure that I would do it. But I want to know what you do. Let me know in comments. Got a bunch of cool stuff coming out. Obviously, I'm 72 hours from an Attic Find Friday here. I've got a busy week, but lots more stuff. Make sure you click that subscribe button. Thanks and have a great day.